For many people, their relationship with issues of disability changed the advent of the pandemic, particularly as we have done research and continued to do research on the effects of long COVID. But it shouldn't take a pandemic for us to have a discussion about issues of disability, about internalized ableism, about the relationships that we all have with our own bodies. And these aren't conversations that we have to walk into with fear or shame. It's part of why I'm so excited to introduce our next two speakers. They're hoping that we'll be able to channel our knowledge and understanding of game systems and use that as an opportunity to reevaluate the relationship we have with our own bodies and with society at large. They're hoping that we will, quote, treat life like a game, but not in the way people keep telling you to. So please welcome to the stage A. Tony Jerome and Charlotte Fierro.
Hello.
Hello.
We are two disabled game devs coming to you today to talk about why you should treat your life like a video game.
But not the way people keep telling you to, where the world wants you to do as much as you can all the time forever until you're in the ground, and maybe after that too, if we're being honest.
We're presenting you with another option, do the exact opposite.
And here's why. Ableism kills, and we want you here. There are levels to this shit, so let's get into it. Level 1, acknowledge and adjust. It's okay to be Cripplepunk, and or surviving the process of making games is part of the process of making games.
Being able is temporary, so live life as a Cripplepunk today. You learn how to play new games, right? Whether you're a speedrunner or you treat every game as a physics toy or an open world game, you can learn to play in new and different ways that's more fun and accessible for your own self. Much like that, here's a new way to live life.
What does Cripplepunk mean? It means recognizing that white supremacy is an integral part of a capitalist society bent on squeezing out every last drop of productivity it can wring from us, without a care as to whether we live full lives otherwise. Black, Indigenous, and other global majority folks are more likely to be disabled and have less access to medical care and assistance. This means that we cannot depend on the system fully to support us. We've got to support ourselves first, and then use what we can from the system to keep going.
First, you've got to accept that you have disabilities and or will have ones at some point in your life. It's possible to skip this level, but it can make it harder for you as we level up. Being able temporarily is not a fault. Body's body, and we live in them, and this is just the way things go. Ableism demands that we curse our bodies for being bodies, and that's that outside shit we don't need to bring in here.
Acknowledging doesn't mean accepting. It would be great if acceptance is like your default, but for many of us, it simply can't be because of what we've been conditioned to believe about ourselves and the world. A lot of life is simply unpacking shit that's hard as shit to unpack and doing the next right thing. Yes, I just watched Frozen 2 for the first time. You do not have to love your body, the house that you're in, but it does make it a little easier for day-to-day living if you can dress it up to your liking. Leaning into Cripplepunk means a lot of things, but for me, it means remembering that doctors aren't gospel. They can be important tools for your health, but you know your body best, and you've got to trust that. Full disclosure for this part. It turns out memes aren't just pieces of internet that you resonate with and put in your digital back pocket, but that's what I call them, and so I'm going to stick to that. Memes help me lean into Cripplepunk. Memes help me come to terms with my sexuality and gender and better communicate with others because it gave me a language I could look up context for. Shout out to Urban Dictionary. Memes aren't going to save the world, of course, but they can make you feel like you at least have a place in it. I've had terrible asthma for years, and I've turned it into a joke even though it terrifies me because it's been seen as a nuisance more than a disease that can kill me. Earlier this year, I woke up at 3 in the morning because I couldn't breathe and decided to finally look up what asthma is. Memes gave me a lot of digestible information, ways I could better take care of myself, and taught me that learning more about my disability actually made me feel empowered, not desolate. I clicked on a video about how to take different types of inhalers, and it turns out the way my doctor instructed me to take them ever since I was a kid was wrong. I took my inhaler the way they instructed it in the video, and I could fucking breathe. I still struggle with accepting some of my disabilities. PMDD is the one I'm most embarrassed about, but memes help me with the acknowledge phase. They might help you too.
Yeah, and dealing with internalized ableism towards yourself or others is no joke. It could be that you're expecting too much from yourself, not asking for help or setting boundaries, or just not feeling disabled enough to use accessibility tools. Like for me, I regret not getting and using mobility aids a long time ago, from an e-bike, a scooter, to using a cane, so on. I've spent years looking for a place to sit down. Damn, cities being so antisocial. I just this August finally got my first wheelchair. Do not be me. Oh, and another example, I'm literally speaking slash typing this while lying down. As someone with severe myalgic encephalomyelitis, this enables me to use a computer at all. Level 2, customize and choose.
This is where you get to pick what flavors you want to add to your life. Think closed captions, bigger fonts, or rollator.
Yeah, and or get a shower seat. Ask a friend to handhold you to a new place slash situation. Be awkward. Read news in a mindful manner. Fill your mind with things that please you and that make you want to create.
Now, these are individual choices, but we're not done yet, and often these choices can overlap with level 3.
Okay, now we're at the game making part. Instead of better, stronger, faster, think cheaper, littler, slower. Start with accessibility for yourself. If you're having trouble creating it, does that mean someone might have trouble accessing it or playing it?
Robert Frost said this thing where it's like tears in the writer, tears in the reader, laughter in the writer, laughter in the reader. In this community, we tend to see people uplift game devs who are two up, down, left, right combos from a mental breakdown because they've created an amazing game by pretty much shutting down everything else in life that could bring them comfort, rest, or joy. I don't know about you, but it makes it harder for me to enjoy someone's creations when I know that they went through hell to create it. If you think of your favorite game, if you knew that the creator believed that they are only worth that game being made if they sacrifice everything that can make life worth living for it, could you honestly say you'd be cool with that? Like if you were next to them while they're crying into their keyboard, would you be cool with like yelling at them to move faster so you can have better graphics instead of letting them take a nap?
Seriously, you should feel good about making things in a way that doesn't harm yourself. Making them small and slow is good. Smaller, shittier, lazier, in a liberatory, reclamatory way is my motto. Even the smallest game can change everything for someone else, and that someone could be you.
But don't skip on accessibility for your players either.
A few ideas that matter to me a lot, for instance, are EPUBs for reading, alt text, and things being single player.
3 things that matter to me are customizable font like Open Dyslexic, my beloved, the ability to play a narrative-focused version of the game so I can still feel like I can participate, even if I don't have the reflexes to play the game in original mode the first time, and high contrast settings so that I can better distinguish things of importance. Because one thing these ADHD's eyes are going to do is glaze, baby.
Accessibility doesn't have to be perfect, but a good effort and centering it at the start of your project is needed.
Level 3, community and fight, and or grow fruit or snuggle animals or make a list or all of the above. Leaning into Cripplepunk isn't easy. You'll think that you've gotten over all your internalized ableism and something will pop up that makes you realize that's not true. But that's where community can help you. Earlier this year, I got to go to Health Justice Commons series on climate justice and its intersection with the medical industrial complex. And having a brown and black majority queer disabled community investigate and reckon with the medical industrial complex and how an individual's inability to navigate it in a way that, helps them isn't a moral failing. The inherent racism, ableism, homotransphobia, and their intersections are meant to keep the majority of us from receiving proper care, and feeling shitty about that is normal, not something that needs to be punished. I only internalized that belief after being surrounded by queer disabled folk who knew this to be true.
We need to work together to survive and thrive, and we protect us. We know what we need, And always remember, you are a member of your communities. Community care is self-care, and self-care is community care. Okay, you're saying, but how do I pay my bills and how do I not rely on big corpos as much? There's really a lot of ways to make a living, gain skills, and get the word out about the rad stuff you're making, especially if you're not gunning for normal ways of living.
I've crowdfunded, been indebted to people, and applied for grants, which I highly recommend. But most of all, I just do shit you can't really put on a resume. I've edited for things from poetry to academic work to audio for puppet performances, done last minute stand-ins for play readings, dog sat before the pandemic. I have a Ko-fi, but my main thing is throwing applications to almost everything I come across on social media. Most of my opportunities have come from me thinking, I don't know how this will work out, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways, and just hoping. I do not recommend this as your base, but it does bring in a little money when I least expect it.
Few things I've done is setting up Patreon or other similar websites. Folks do seem to prefer Patreon and Ko-fi in my experience. Begging really is fine, unless you're in Finland where it's literally illegal, but really do not feel ashamed. Capitalism is not your fault. The destruction of communities is not your doing. Surviving and thriving are actually good things. Right, so anyway, I also have a Fetty account on mastodon.art. We don't treat it as a brand, but it is where we get the word out, fundraising, games made, and so on.
And also, bundles are also great ways for those of us with little money to give money, such as the recent Games for Sudan and TTRPGs for Palestine bundles.
Okay, now that you've got a wee bit of cash flow, how do you deal with day-to-day living? That whole corporeal body you got to lug around thing, plus your physical space.
This is where having meat space community you've been building up keeps you all going. Roommates that you're friends with, loved ones, etc. Think relationship anarchy too.
And really hold regular household meetings, maybe every week or maybe just once a month. But these are super important for coordinating budgets and shit, admin tasks, airing of grievances, for actual conflict resolutions, and planning festivities.
Where you live can make a big difference too. How does healthcare work or not work where you are? How walkable or not is your location? Are there buses or libraries? Maybe you and your kith and kin can move together to a place that works better for you all. Here's our big old list of resources for living.
There's so many ways to get help, and these are just a few ideas. It does take time and effort to find, and you may start to feel a bit beggars can't be choosers, which is bollocks. But if you take it slow and easy, your community can do this together. Big shout out to the Autistic BIPOC Fund and my local food pantry.
Libraries are always my absolute favorite, not just for living, but for soul feeding stuff too. So support your libraries. They want to help you.
And our big old list of resources for game making.
Lots of free or low cost options out there, and here's a few.
For example, my favorite graphics tool that I use for just about everything is Inkscape. I make printable PDFs with this, using it as a page layout tool because I'm like that. And I've gotten really into using Sigil for making EPUBs.
Twine is honestly that girl. I'm an interactive fiction boy before anything else, and Twine forces me to get out of my head and put thoughts to page immediately. I'm also a fan of Pocket Platformer because it lets you test out levels quickly and learn more about platformers by doing the thing.
We know we've shared a ton of links, so if you ever want to find those again, I'll have them on my website at evil.life/cripplepunk GDOC 2024.html. We'll also update it with any new links and such as we find them.
We hope our presentation has been helpful, and reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions or just want to chat.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for that talk, Tony and Sholot. I've got to admit, I have been dealing with some of those issues of internalized ableism myself after getting diagnosed with ADHD. Those things said, I think there were a lot of really helpful tips here to help push through some of those struggles, and I hope that if some of that resonated with you in the audience, that maybe you took some notes like I did. If you'd like to catch up with these folks afterwards, you can find Charlotte on mastodon.art/@aldercone. You can find a Tony Jerome at youhavetherighttotheremember.me, and that's right with a WRIT. Thank you so much for that talk.